Hello and welcome to Champions of Choice 2024. Please continue enjoying your meal as we get started with our programming. For those of you who I have not met yet, my name is Abby Schumer. I'm the board chair of the NIRH. Together with the board chair of the NIRH Action Fund, Daniel and I are pleased to welcome you today. There are so many people to thank for making today possible. Our dynamic honorary co-chairs, our honorees across the movement and philanthropic circles, distinguished colleagues who fight forward alongside us. We welcome Planned Parenthood of Greater New York. We also welcome friends from New York Abortion Access Fund. We are also excited that not only did we get lucky enough for Liz Winstead to be one of our co-MCs, but we have members of Liz's amazing team at Abortion Action Front. And of course, each one of you in this room who took time out of your week to support the National Institute for Reproductive Health and its Action Fund. I'd like to give special recognition to our boards of directors and the entire staff. Board members and staff who are in the room, could you guys please stand up for a moment so we can recognize you? Each and every one of you has been carrying this work forward through a year of transition and at an unprecedented time in reproductive rights. We continue to stand strong in our work because of each one of you. I would like to shout out one particular board member who I didn't see in the haze, who's been a steadfast supporter of NIRH for many years and who's actually celebrating a birthday today. So Jill Brofman, I will not make you stand up, but happy birthday. This year's event is bittersweet for us because it is our first without our longtime president, Andrea Miller, who unexpectedly passed away last fall. The fabric of our organization and the reproductive freedom blueprint we're unveiling for the first time today are imprinted with Andrea's visionary legacy. Andrea was known for her strategic prowess, her ability to see the whole picture and anticipate the needs before they were obvious to anybody else. Under her leadership, she trailblazed local abortion funding models that at the time didn't exist and felt impossible to achieve. Yet today, we are seeing states and cities invest historic amounts of funding to support reproductive health care, including abortion. Andrea was among the first leaders in the reproductive rights space to push for a more inclusive framework that went beyond Roe. She penned an op-ed in Elle last year that challenged conventional wisdom on a national stage. Andrea handcrafted NIRH as a strategy center for reproductive health, rights, and justice policies. And today, NIRH is the first and only national reproductive rights organization focused solely on state and local change, because we recognize that the state level is where rights begin. Oh. Jump the gun there. There's a common thread across the many actions Andrea took during her time at NIRH. She looked at the landscape and had a keen eye for identifying gaps in existing policies and the communities left out of them, like state and local abortion funding.
I'm a little taller than Abby, so I can just act. So, building on Andrea's formidable legacy, I am honored to share today our national advocacy blueprint, filling large gaps in the wake of Dobbs v. Jackson Whole Women's Health, the case that overturned Roe. Let's look at the data. Since Roe was overturned, a Perry Undum survey showed voters favor pro-abortion ballot measures without any government restrictions by 25 points, compared to the Roe ballots we're seeing in 8 states this year that only seek to protect abortion within limits. Between 2006 and the end of Roe, nearly 1,500 people faced criminal investigations for their pregnancy outcomes because of personhood laws, viability limits, and other gestational cutoffs that allow the government to interfere in pregnancy. According to our newest national research exploring attitudes towards Roe-era abortion policy ideas like viability limits, we are seeing people across party lines resoundingly reject government interference in abortion. In fact, the majority of respondents in our recent focus groups and qualitative surveys said that they don't want any restrictions applied against reproductive health care. Research shows the majority of Americans not only support abortion, but they are asking for more rights. That's what's being proposed in the kinds of constitutional amendments that we will see in those states where abortion could be protected, but only to a certain point in pregnancy. In fact, a new Quinnipiac poll shows 66%, or 2/3 of Americans, want to see abortion legal in all or most cases. The data guides our work. Our blueprint is threefold in its approach: culture change, policy change, and shifting power. To ensure that people directly impacted in the wake of policy responses to Dobbs are accounted for in a plan. And we will leverage these important data points to seize the opportunities presented in the here and now. Culture change. We will work with other leaders, some of whom you'll hear from today, help our friends understand that the solutions to the mass suffering we're experiencing in a post-Roe reality don't live back just in 1973. Our teams will be taking our research work and conducting trainings for advocates, elected leaders, and other allies to break down the data and learn new ways of talking about abortion that affirm every person's ability to access care throughout their entirety of their pregnancy. We will build trainings that normalize expansive abortion advocacy so that we can collectively change the narrative to center patients most often left out of the policies. Policy change. NIRH is championing groundbreaking policies that take an innovative approach to protecting reproductive freedom. The New York Equal Rights Amendment, many of you will be voting on in November, is one example. Side note, I live in Denver. We'll also be voting on a really amazing abortion ballot initiative, so shout out for Denver, for Colorado. It's a first-of-a-kind state constitutional amendment that will protect reproductive freedom, including abortion and pregnancy outcomes like miscarriage under sex discrimination. The Action Fund was a key player in passing this measure through the legislature, and now we're working to get it over the finish line. But this isn't just about New York. NIRH is prepared to champion this cutting-edge model in other states. That's why we've already invested hundreds of thousands of dollars to the ERA campaign. With your support, we can continue fueling this policy to victory. Last, but perhaps most importantly, we will shift power into the hands of people all too often overlooked in the political and advocacy process, including advocates and activists who are closest to the solutions. NIRH has supported more than 200 partners across 43 states, which is why we're poised to build grassroots power. This means continuing to invest in organizations that have the will but lack the resources. When you resource NIRH, you are playing a direct role in shifting power back to the communities that need change most. We have power. The people have power. Changing culture, winning worthy policies, and building power are all interconnected, and you too can help us shift the narrative and tell an uncompromising story about claiming our rights and our freedoms. Each of you can contribute to bold culture change so that NIRH can go out into the states and pass good policy. NIRH has a vision, we have a plan, and it includes all of you. When you invest in NIRH, whether it's your time, money, or platform, you are shaping a movement that this country has yet to see. One where we define our rights and our freedoms, not the opposition or anti-abortion operatives. We will write all of ourselves into the laws of this land because our humanity is not up for negotiation.
This year, NIRH and the Action Fund wanted to recognize the contributions and truly life-changing impact abortion providers make with patients who are navigating unprecedented barriers to care in a post-Roe world. This year's Fearless Provider honors one provider whose work has quite literally kept abortion available for an entire Midwest and Southern region riddled with abortion bans. Dr. Colleen McNicholas has spent her entire OBGYN career providing reproductive health care, including abortion, in the most politically hostile states in Missouri, Kansas, and Oklahoma. Today, she is providing abortion at the border between Illinois and Missouri, where patients travel from more than a dozen states around the Midwest and South. Recognizing that advocacy work is a necessary component to the care she provides, Dr. McNicholas's political advocacy has taken her to Congress, the White House, and the European Parliament, sharing the stories of countless patients who continue to endure indignities forced upon them by anti-abortion politicians. Please help me welcome to the stage Dr. Colleen McNicholas.
And I'm a little shorter than Daniel, so I'll move it back down. This truly is an honor. As you heard, I am an OBGYN and a specialist in complex family planning. If you run in the opposition circles, that is abortionist extraordinaire. I have spent my entire career taking care of the most marginalized pregnant patients, Black and brown folks, young people, and people needing abortion later in pregnancy, all selectively saddled with endless barriers just because the state they live in, how much money they make, or their unique pregnancy circumstances. You've also heard that I have always lived in and provided care in places where abortion access was the most stigmatized and hardest to secure: Missouri, Kansas, and Oklahoma. And if you're not familiar, it's 3 states right in the middle of the country there. I live in Missouri, and although we're best known as the residents of Taylor Swift's boyfriend, we are also the first state to have banned abortion following the Dobbs decision, the case that overturned Roe. Although many woke up to a devastating reality that day, the truth is the Dobbs decision had very little impact on the access landscape in my state. Let me say that again. Despite an all-out ban triggered by the Dobbs decision, the impact to abortion access in Missouri has been minimal at best. You probably are a little confused, and you should be. But let me, for just a moment, share Missouri's truth. When I was born, Missouri had 30 abortion clinics. Now, given that I exude only the vibes of a young and spry diva, I won't make you guess. It was the 80s. So in the 80s, Missourians could access abortion at 30 different locations sprinkled across the state. As I entered my teen years, there were a dozen. By the time I got to medical school, 2. And for the several years before Roe fell, my clinic in St. Louis was the only abortion clinic left in the state. The Roe framework failed Missourians in many ways. The elimination of clinics over just a few decades is one small piece of that story. The constant and creative attacks on abortion pushed patients out of the state well before June of 2022. In the years leading up to Dobbs, under the federal protection of Roe, fewer than 150 Missourians were able to access that care in their home state. That Missouri was left behind and has been living this post-Roe reality for many, many years is tragic. And it gave us an opportunity to be prepared and allowed us to get ready for this moment. In 2019, 3 years before Roe was overturned, I was part of a team that opened a clinic 12 miles from St. Louis, just across the Mississippi River in Illinois, our Freedom State neighbor. When we opened, we were seeing patients almost exclusively from Illinois and Missouri. That first year, we saw 4,000 abortion patients. Last year, we saw more than 11,000 abortion patients representing 30 states. But we were ready. Harassment of providers and patients is also not new. Subpoenas from Missouri's Attorney General, endless unfounded complaints filed to the Missouri Licensure Board, those are routine occurrences. The state tracked our patients' menstrual cycles, weird, and sexually assaulted patients seeking medication abortion by requiring that they undergo a medically unnecessary pelvic exam first. The harassment is exhausting, but out of it, we became experts in forging abortion access out of nothing. In fact, nothing about what we're experiencing in the fight for abortion access today is new. This pre-Dobbs reality is what political expediency got Missouri and so many other states under the Roe framework. Roe's bargain was a political victory under the guise of legal rights on paper in exchange for the government's continued foothold in pregnancy decision-making. As an abortion provider, my work doesn't start or stop at the clinic doors. Engaging in political advocacy is part of my commitment to patients whose rights have been traded, bartered, and stolen in the name of politics. My unique value, however, is that I have the tremendous honor to hold the millions of stories of people who have been directly harmed by compromised political solutions. My everyday work is an intimate reminder of how political slogans and campaign promises so frequently leave the most marginalized erased and uncared for in the aftermath of expedient political wins. What may seem abstract or even unimaginable to you, I remember vividly and clearly as the face of a child wearing rainbow leggings, accompanied by devastated and sobbing parents, grasping for any inclination that their little girl, inseparable from her teddy bear, could survive this trauma and maybe one day heal enough to have a family of her own. Abortion later in pregnancy. This might seem like an acceptable compromise. After all, you believed us when we told you, don't pay attention to that. It represents just a small number of people who need abortions. Well, to me, it looks like the 34-year-old mother of two, both under the age of 5, whose pregnancy was discovered at 26 weeks when her cancer treatments stopped abruptly working. It looks like her tears, it looks like her white knuckles from gripping her husband's hands, and the agonizing desperation to see her 2 kiddos get on the school bus for the first time or cartwheel down first base at their first t-ball game. These patients share a common experience. They actually came from states where abortion remained legal, but because of compromises that our side made, they too were forced to travel. These are some of the stories I've shared behind closed doors with the Vice President, the Biden campaign, cabinet members, governors, and congressional leaders from across the country. The moments of tears, sometimes tears of pain, tears of joy, and even tears of relief. The teddy bears, the cupcakes in recovery room, because nobody's 13th birthday should be remembered only by their abortion story. The college aspirations in first-generation high school graduates, the freedom gained from an abusive relationship, and quite literally, the gift to live another day, reminds me nobody deserves to suffer in the ways that these patients have. Nobody's abortion story is more important, more defendable, or more worthy of our protection. I'm almost done, I promise. The end of Roe set off a domino of loss, opening the eyes of many previously unengaged and uninformed, the apathetic masses. For me and so many of my colleagues who have been drudging through this swamp for years, we saw this moment differently. We saw it as an opportunity in a clean slate with a real possibility this time that we could break free from the bondage of the Roe framework. We dared to dream that the slogans we chanted and the t-shirts we wore would translate into meaningful and just healthcare policy. The fall of Roe brought public outcries and a growing popularity of abortion. I mean, abortion is basically as popular as puppies right now. except in South Dakota. I have no idea what's happening there. For years, many of us hoped that this would radicalize the masses towards bold and innovative action. For years before and after Roe fell, I have spent countless hours attending roundtables, lobbying the politically powerful, sharing these stories with the hope that when the moment came, they would be primed with the will to do it differently. Funding abortion as basic life-saving healthcare, ending insurance bans, and rejecting abortion restrictions and exceptions as any sort of acceptable compromise. 2 years in, the slogans and the t-shirts, steeped in values and shaped by the experiences of those who have been casualties to our history, still reverberate in the halls of Congress and in the hashtags of a movement's agenda, but with very few exceptions, not where it matters most, in the policies that will define abortion access for decades to come. Okay, New York, this is your moment to shine. I'm thrilled to say that your New York ERA will in fact disrupt that cycle. So congratulations. And NIRH, it gives me such hope to see a movement organization challenging the status quo out loud, fighting for policy language, better systems, and justice-oriented outcomes. I'm galvanized by the supporters, staff, and activists in this room today who share a vision, NIRH's vision, for a fight forward like we've never experienced. The right fix is worth the wait. The moment that the SCOTUS, leaked the Dobbs decision, predictions of impending doom reigned free. But despite half the country having completely or significantly losing access, there have been more abortions in the 2 years since the decision than there were in the 2 years before the decision. Don't get me wrong, the landscape is a hellish obstacle course for patients who live in the 41 states where abortion is banned at some point in pregnancy, and that includes here in New York State. It's gonna fix, right, in November. But we, the people, the activists, you in this room, we're getting really good at building and resourcing community-based responses to abortion bans. From abortion funds, like New York Abortion Access Fund, practical support organizations like the Bridget Alliance that are navigating patients to clinics, and the activists who are educating people about safely self-managing their care. It is the collective of individuals who are stepping up to ensure the most marginalized among us can get the care that we need. This is the power in this room and in the many communities near and far, if and only if we are willing to think differently, to innovate, and to address the realities that are in front of us. This is the power NIRH is leveraging, its unwavering commitment to community-centered change. My last memory of Andrea was actually just the day before she passed away. As we were wrapping up our call, she said to me, "I am so excited about this team that we are building. It is the one that will once and for all leave no one behind." Her follow-up email later that day, because who sends a follow-up email literally an hour later? She did, had a subject line that simply said, "Leave no one behind," with not just one, but a few exclamation points. The revolutions of our time, civil rights, human rights, trans rights, gender rights, have all been won because of the brave activists who challenged the status quo, who demanded their dignity, stood in their values, and spoke truth to power. We are often bearing the brunt of the majority-minded pushback, who so desperately want expediency over justice. And in these moments, we look to you for support and community. Look, my journey is full of stories of those who have been left behind. My work, our collective work, is to honor those with an unrelenting fight for full liberation. Any political compromise on reproductive freedom is a luxury tax that will be paid in full by the most marginalized, those left behind. So in the words of Andrea Miller, keep fighting forward. Thank you.
None of us could possibly have envisioned what we would be through. To be blunt, and you know I always am, the level of cruelty and disregard for women's health, lives, and futures, emanating like a noxious wave from conservative jurists and extremist state legislators, seems to know no bounds. But we are still here, we're together again, and our resolve is stronger than ever, is it not? We've gone from marching in the streets to marching into the ballot booth and up the Capitol steps. We are answering the call to fight back, to change what's happening, and sent a powerful message all across the country that right now is when states need to step up and lead. And I want to say to the people of Texas and in states that are so under siege, like Arizona and Florida and Georgia and more, we see you. We're here to help our partners weather this immediate storm, and I promise you, together we are playing the long game to turn this around, because I know we will and we can. And with you by our side since the fall of Roe, we've been able to get back up and get back to doing what we do best, which is fighting forward. There has never been a time more suited to what we do at the National Institute for Reproductive Health and its Action Fund. Because we fight for just and equitable access to reproductive health care, passing good laws where we can, and building political power for the future for reproductive freedom in the states. That is what fighting forward looks like. We are turning anger into action, rejecting the old excuses, breaking down the resistance to change so that we can truly create new possibilities that are so needed now. Every day, you embody courage, leadership, strength, passion, compassion, and the kind of bold action we know we need to challenge those who want to turn back the clock, deny us our freedom, and challenge our very humanity. We will not stand for it. Together, we will make this possible and a better country for all. Because I know together, we are ultimately unstoppable. Let's take the inspiration from seeing each other, being with each other, advocating alongside each other, carry that forward into what I know will be a better, brighter, more just future. Thank you so much for being here.
Please welcome Andrea Miller's sisters Maureen Hunt, Nicole Botsford Miller, and Monica Miller.
Hello, my name is Maureen Hunt. I am one of Andrea Miller's sisters. I'm here with my two sisters, Nicole Botsford Miller and Monica Miller. We are here to present a new award named after Andrea. Some of you may know that Andrea joined this fight for women's health in her teens. She marched, and I remember her encouraging me to attend pro-choice rallies at the Minnesota State Capitol when I was entering high school and she was moving to New York for college. I have always known her to be an advocate for women's reproductive rights, and she is so dearly missed by me, my family, and so many more. Andrea put her lifeblood into this organization for a decade. It's fitting and it's sad that this award has been created in her memory. Now, it is my honor to introduce the inaugural recipient of the Andrea N. Miller Fighting Forward Award. This award embodies my sister's life and work and recognizes a movement leader's tireless efforts, strategic vision, and unwavering commitment to advancing just and equitable abortion access. Pamela Merritt is the executive director of Med Students for Choice, where the next generation of providers in 30 countries are training in all aspects of reproductive health care, including abortion. Pamela knows that what we do today will have a ripple effect on the clinicians of tomorrow. While she leads a global nonprofit, she is also chair of the Guttmacher Institute Board of Directors. Please join me in welcoming the 2024 Andrea N. Miller Fighting Forward recipient, Pamela Merritt.
Oh, goodness. Thank you. I am honored to receive the Andrea N. Miller Fighting Forward Award, and I want to thank the NIRH Board of Directors and staff for organizing this wonderful event. I feel a connection to NIRH and Andrea that goes back several years. Andrea and I had Minnesota in common, and even though I left that state at 18 months of age, you can take the girl out of St. Paul, but you can't take St. Paul out of the girl. We shared a Midwestern sensibility, and I will always remember spending time with Andrea in St. Louis, where we plotted ways to reinvigorate the movement for reproductive health rights and justice from the grassroots up. NIRH granted me my first funded project way back in 2011 or maybe 2012. It's all a blur. I organized a reproductive justice table in St. Louis to proactively prepare for racist anti-abortion billboard campaign that showed up a few months later. So in many ways, NIRH is responsible for me understanding that this could be a career, that there are organizations that will support grassroots justice work, and that there is a place in this movement for a loud, unapologetic, queer Black organizer from Missouri who believes bodily autonomy is a human right and is not afraid to organize accordingly. In that spirit, I asked the following question: what would Andrea do? In this moment, with so much at stake and so much to gain, with the South now completely shut off from legal access to in-clinic abortion care, with Black infant and maternal mortality rates still lingering at indefensible levels, with vicious, life-threatening attacks on access to gender-affirming care moving in multiple states from the Deep South to the Midwest, what would Andrea do? Reproductive oppression has thrown off the sheep costume and is ravaging our communities, not out of ignorance or misguided strategy, but because the majority isn't with them. So again, what would Andrea do? Andrea would demand strategy, and if the movement didn't produce it, she'd gather the doers and make it happen. Andrea would champion audacious goals, unrestricted access to health care, unapologetic protections for trans folk. Andrea N. Miller would center those most impacted by reproductive oppression, not just because reproductive justice calls on us to say that, but because that's how we strategically win what we need. Andrea would wrap it all up in a plan, developed by stakeholders and organizers in the grassroots who are eager to organize for what people need, not just what we have historically accepted. Andrea would support bold organizing, the kind of organizing that makes a person feel sick on election day, but delivers real wins. undebatable wins. What people need, not just what we think we can get. Andrea believed that we should do our best by the people in the communities that we serve. She cautioned that we should avoid leaning on conventional wisdom, that we should question our habits, our structure, coalition partners, strategies, and our leadership. That after 50 years, maybe we should take the reproductive justice framework out for a test drive. I joined Medical Students for Choice because the writing was on the wall. Roe was gone the second CNN called the 2016 election for he who shall not be named. Abortion and family planning training and education at medical schools in the United States and across the world is in crisis. And without future providers, procedural abortion is a right in name only. I know, just as my colleagues know, that medication abortion doesn't solve the access problem. And I also know that if we don't protect people from the limitations of viability limits, truly a solution in search of a problem, we will have failed to capitalize on the fact that people are ready to kick politics out of the exam room. They're ready. The people are ready. I've given this movement my 30s and my 40s. I'm 51 now, and I have only just begun to fight. I know that I stand on the shoulders of amazing activists like Andrea, and that every single right I have was won by people who rejected the status quo, had those courageous conversations and lots of arguments too, and summoned unimaginable courage in the face of violence and pain. The radical grassroots gave me freedom, the right to own property instead of be owned as property. It gave me an education, safe housing, fresh drinking water, and all of the human rights that made it possible for me to travel here today and receive this honor. I know that we will win, that reproductive justice will ultimately prevail. It's going to take work, and we are all exhausted. It's going to be scary and more than a little risky, and that's what this moment calls for. Future generations will look back and ask what we did post-Roe. What would Andrea do? She would fight forward courageously. She'd support coalitions formed to build strategies with transformational goals. Andrea would champion campaigns organized to win reproductive justice and freedom for all. Let's do this. Let's stop celebrating compromise as victory and start organizing to win. For those of us who are now without access, for those who have been without access for decades, for future generations and for ourselves and for our communities, Andrea Miller would fight forward, and I won't do anything less. Thank you so much for this tremendous honor.
What are you doing? Do you need a sip of water? Because I'm sobbing this whole thing. So I'm also from Minnesota, and I knew Andrea back in Minnesota, and she is a dear friend, and she's a dear friend to many of us here. And so it seems really hard to continue the work because Andrea always knew the framework and she had the historical knowledge. She was one of those people that was just like a Jeopardy game of knowledge, right? She just knew everything. And so we're like, how do we do this without having that knowledge? And I think the thing that we have to remember is that she gave that knowledge to this team at NIRH so profoundly that the brilliance in this room that is carrying on this legacy is unparalleled. And I don't think that we say that enough, and I just want to give a round of applause to those who have been inspired and learned and mentored by Andrea, because I have so much confidence in their brilliance. I just do. And so this you can, you must, Andrea's-ism is really where we're going. Her reproductive freedom blueprint that NIRH is deploying, like, it's all going to require, you know what, resources. And those resources are going to be so pinpointed. So your gift to NIRH is going to support all of the research that we need to shape effective advocacy policies, not just throwing shit against the wall, right? And the grants that fuel the ground power, because as Andrea has known from the beginning, if we don't empower local communities to put pressure on local politicians, nothing will get done. So your gift to NIRH Action Fund will help get those champions down ballot in those states who will create the policy on the ground and will listen to people like Colleen and listen to people like Pamela, because those are the people that politicians need to hear from to make the policy we're talking about. Every dollar raised here today will help NIRH and the NIRH Action Fund to execute that next generation of advocacy that Abby was talking about, that Daniel was talking about, and again, that Colleen and Pamela were talking about. This next year, NIRH will be pushing for policies in more than a dozen states that affirm abortion rights without government interference, access to birth control and birth justice policies that 100% empower pregnant people and their choices to parent or not to parent. For $1,000, you can support message training for the allied stakeholders critical to winning these forward-thinking policies. On the Action Fund side, $5,000 will support our work in training candidates to center abortion on the campaign trail. NIRH will also be deploying national polling to research and better, more modern ways of communicating about reproductive freedom to supporters, lawmakers, and other allies so that we can all do the conversations and learn. And if you learned anything today, or if what Colleen was saying today was new to you about expanding Roe, that's important messaging that we need to get to our politicians, because Roe is just not enough. We never deserve crumbs. And we've been handed something, crumbs, and been told it's a meal, and it's not. And so all of the research is playing a critical role in helping all of us meet voters, supporters, and other allies where they are on abortion issues. For 10 grand? Yeah, 10 grand. Joyo will come to your house. No, I'm making that up. I don't know if that's true, but maybe we can arrange it. You can help fund research programming. I feel like Joyle's a good research program, right? I feel like she's done some research on the floor of that restroom. I'm just saying. They've moved me out of research on the prompter. They're like, move it along. And the Action Fund will be a key player ensuring that the New York Equal Rights Amendment wins the ballot box in November, which maybe, I just want to say too, maybe you read today in the paper that there was a little hiccup. It was a hiccup. It's some bullshit Republicans being like, oh, you didn't do procedure right. Well, we can fix that, because Tish James ain't taking that shit sitting down. We all know that. So that's going to be on the ballot in November. Do not feel disappointed. And as we talked about, and you know, New York is setting the model for the rest of the country. The way that they have framed this is an incredibly expansive gender model to protect pregnant people. And that's going to be something that gives other states the ability to follow suit. And that is Andrea's legacy and NIRH's legacy, consistently trying to create systems and programs and laws that can be replicable for other states, and I love that. So NIRH is committed to supporting that campaign all the way to the finishing line, know that. So here we go. For the $25,000 gift, Joyelle will not come to your house. I don't know why I'm shitting on Joyelle. I love Joyelle. The $25,000 gift to the Action Fund will help get this actually building the framework I was talking about. It will build these measures across the country. So it's so important that we help, because we have capacity, help those who don't have capacity to have the equal access that we have here because we have it. So I love that supporting the staff at NIRH to make this happen is top of mind, because they are, when I tell you they're carrying on Andrea's legacy, they don't know any other way, because it is the best way forward. So give to the Action Fund to make this happen. These two organizations, NIRH and the NIRH Action Fund, are setting the standard that no one else is setting. I cannot stress it enough. They're fighting forward just the way Andrea wanted. And it's just rarely been tried, and we cannot win if we don't try. Because by trying, we can adjust. And by adjusting, we can get it right. And so your support is critical to build, to work towards getting that solid foundation in place, because if we do that, we will shape a movement for another generation. And right now, young folks are looking to us because we know they feel like we've let them down. They feel like we compromised their future. So by investing today, you are telling the next generation, we see our mistakes, we see the potential, and we're going to fund it to make it so for you. So now I'm bringing back to the stage to introduce our final honoree, the amazing NIRH Board Chair, Abby Schumer. Abby!
It is my honor to introduce you to a very important member of this movement. The Power of Philanthropy Award, which celebrates an individual who has demonstrated outstanding generosity and commitment to advancing reproductive health and rights for all, goes to Lawrence Benenson. I can see the Lawrence section. Lawrence has used storytelling to raise awareness for critical issues of our time, including documentaries that dive into space exploration, the wealth gap in America, and the Jewish identity. Andrea shaped NIRH's advocacy program through the lens of storytelling to advance causes important to this organization. So it's only fitting that our Philanthropy Award honors a fellow storyteller and trusted friend of NIRH. In addition to his love of the arts, Lawrence and his wife Elise established a foundation that inspires giving to educational, environmental, artistic, and community empowerment to organizations such as the National Institute for Reproductive Health. We are so honored to present Lawrence Benenson with this year's Power of Philanthropy Award.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Abby. Welcome, ladies and sperm donors. Okay, good crowd, good crowd. Andrea Miller was a very good friend of mine. And I still have the dozens of handwritten notes she wrote to me over the years. Andrea was a wonderful person, and we all miss her intensely. I'm a fan of the National Institute for Reproductive Health for many reasons. 25 years ago, I started my involvement with this luncheon when NIRH was called NARAL, pro-choice. I was the only man listed on the invitation. I figured it was a good way to meet women. I was, and still am, attracted to convincing people that their choices matter. The world does not need another white or black or silver car. For some reason, people have stopped choosing colorful cars. There used to be many red, blue, and green cars on the road. Maybe it's a privacy thing. There's so little privacy left, having a nondescript automobile may be enticing. However, I think people don't realize they have a choice. And even when given a choice, many people defer and settle for the first available, least cumbersome option. Some people decide not to send back an unsatisfactory meal. Some people decide to accept bad service or no service. Please consider deciding for yourself the best choice for you. Unfortunately, women are banned from the ultimate choice, choosing the treatment of their bodies. A dead body has more rights. Did you know that? Thousands of potentially life-saving organs are wasted every day because people didn't choose to opt in to donate. But a live woman cannot opt out of being pregnant. It is bewildering to me why so many people, almost all men, are hell-bent on deciding what millions of women cannot and can do with their bodies. For 4,940 years, approximately, it was all men all the time. 60 years ago, the women's liberation movement, that I still call women's lib, began. It is still so nascent and new. Women and men are still very unsure on how to progress. Millions of women still sit on the sidelines and defer to men. Last year at this very luncheon, a speaker recalled that 53% of the women who voted for the previous president. Over 60% of those did so because he was running against a woman. What is with that? The patriarchy is alive and well. If we want equality, we shouldn't have to fight for it. We must all proclaim and claim our freedom from the tyranny of the patriarchy. We must assert our entitlement to freedom and claim our rights as people. Come on. Freedom of choice. Freedom of choice doesn't just mean clicking like or thumbs up or down on social media. It means taking action by having conversations about important topics at cocktail parties, calling your donor-advised fund and giving away the money now. Would you want your husband or man in your life choosing your pocketbook? What? I didn't think so. Women ought to have more control over not just the pocketbooks, but the purse strings too. See, that's a joke, the purse string. You can choose to exert more control over the purse strings. Everyone makes hundreds of choices a day. Many of our choices are deciding not to choose. Why, you could have had the vegetarian meal today, but you chose not to. You could ask for a salad with dressing on the side. You can direct your family's donor-advised fund to give much more money to organizations for women's and human rights, and sooner. In 1869, black men got the right to vote. It took another 50 years until women were allowed to vote. I'm here because I want all people to have equal rights. It is unconscionable that the political group, I don't call it a party because parties are supposed to be fun. It is preposterous that the hypocritical political group, which claims to be anti-government and pro-individual, regulates what the majority of its citizens can do with their bodies. Yesterday, a judge from the same hypocritical political group prevented the people of New York, you, from voting for reproductive freedom. He denied allowing the Equal Rights Amendment to be on the ballot this November. It's a long time from now. Lots going to happen. Hopefully it'll be back on the ballot. But since that's outrageous, be outraged. If you want to make the world a better place, vote, and vote this issue, and tell everyone you know, and tell the people you don't know to vote this issue. And the issue is reproductive freedom. What I'm saying may sound boring and obvious and tedious. However, that's because getting stuff done takes actual work. Do the work. Or just donate. You can walk the walk like my fellow honorees, or talk the talk like I'm doing. And here's another choice. Stop texting. Call people. And if you really don't want to text that, that gobbledygook that was up there briefly, there are cards on all of your tables, and there are pens. Pens are things you write with. And you can make a pledge, which is a solemn promise, to donate to this National Institute for Reproductive Health. There are a lot of controlling people in the world, and they are depending on your inaction. Foil them. They say when you make a speech, you're supposed to talk as if to one person. They also say they're supposed to be naked. Well, I'm speaking to each of you individually. I'm told there are some influencers in this room today. Yeah, about 400. Your influence counts. Use it. Thank you very much.
I just want to say that Liz neglected to mention that on your tables there are donation cards and pens that you can fill them out. And for $10,000 and up, I will come to your house. Because if you're donating $10,000, I want to see what your house looks like, okay?
So we only have 2 more hours to go. Everyone's doing great. I'm kidding, we're wrapping it up and we've been told to be fast about it. So I want to see actual hands moving to baskets and pens, and then I'll wrap it up. Okay, look, good, excellent, good work, nice, very good. I like it. Okay, thank you all so much for coming. You're incredible. This lunch is so meaningful, and especially this year as we navigate the world with Andrea's brains and legacy as our guideposts. Thank you so much, especially to Andrea's sisters. I just want to say, mwah, thank you. Oh, look, flowers for us. Thank you. This usually happens when you're bowing and it's over, but okay. We hope you find your inspiration with these amazing advocates. I just want to say a personal point of privilege that I know Colleen and that I know Pamela and their work, and could not be more proud and to be working with you and always just like doing anything we can for you. So thank you. Thank you to everybody here. So just give money, do it. The bar is back open. get some more drinks to close out the event. And, you know, we're here. Give the money, give the money, give the money, give the money. Give the money. Give the money. Thank you. Platitudes, platitudes, give the money. Thank you. Money. Give. Cash.